Hello, accounting students. Hope you guys are all doing well. Last week we went through the first couple examples of filling out the operating section on the statement of cash flows. So what we're going to do now is kind of wrap up these accounts and how do we create. So far we did cash collected from customers and cash paid for rent. So now I'm going to kind of jump down. We're going to look at cash paid for liability. In this case, as I go down the list, we're going to do the salaries of payable. I'm going to swing back around and do the inventory and the accounts payable. Those two go together, and that's the most complicated one. Not impossible, but just it takes two different control accounts to calculate. So cash paid for salaries. So when you ask yourself, well, which one does it articulate with from the income statement? That would be pretty straightforward. It'd be salary expense. So what we want to do here is we want to put the beginning and starting amount in the salary payable. In this case, we have 8,000 is the beginning, 3 is the ending. And so when we think about what are the journal entries that kind of go along with that, remember when we pay off a liability, the payable is going to get debited, and then we're paying with cash. So how does cash impact the liability? It impacts it with this missing debit over here. So we're solving for that debit. And what makes the payable go up? From the income statement, we have the good old entry, accrued wages but not yet paid, salary expense, and then the payable is going to get credited, so the expense number is going to get plugged in here. So I'm going to go to the income statement that you have, and it looks like the salary expense is 190. So I'm going to plug 190 in here. And so once again, we can do our little algebra equation, but we know that these two numbers are 3,000 greater than this cash paid for salaries. So I have 198 over here, so therefore the cash paid for salaries is 195,000. So there's our answer to solving for how much cash was paid for a liability. The last one here, before I hit the big one, is cash paid for taxes. And this one is, it's always fun. If you were taking this exam, I throw this one on there. And it's kind of fun to walk around the room and see people draw T accounts, and they're doing the entries, and they're doing everything I taught them. But really, when you look at the numbers, your beginning and ending number is 0. So therefore, whatever your expense was, that was the cash that was paid for taxes, right? So if I have a beginning and ending liability and I plug in the expense of 40, I'm solving for this. The answer is 40. Okay, so the cash paid for taxes there is 40. All right, so that takes us then to our last one, is cash paid to suppliers. So what you're looking at here, you have two different accounts. You have inventory, and then you have the payable. So you got to remember when you purchase inventory goes up. All right. So this represents purchases, right? And so here, this inventory goes down. And if we think about the journal entry, when does inventory decrease? Inventory decreases. What is it articulating with? It's articulating with the income statement, cost of goods sold. All right, we've done this entry a gajillion times. So cost of goods sold is going to cause the expense to go down. So remember the journal entry is debit COGS, credit inventory, right? And so how does COGS impact the inventory count? It's a credit. It makes inventory go down. All right. So then what makes inventory goes up is when we have when we purchase something. So we need this purchase number, because the purchase number is going to make the liability go up. Because remember, when we purchase, right, we're going to have that inventory that gets debited, and we buy it on account. So there we have the accounts payable figure. So purchases is going to make the payable go up. And what makes the payable go down? We just looked at that one a second ago. Cash. Cash makes the payable go down. Because when we pay off a liability, we debit the liability and we credit cash. All right, so this debit to the payable represents the liability going down. All right, so there's a two-step approach to solve for cash paid to suppliers. So first I have to figure out my purchase number, and I do that by looking at the control account inventory. And so I'm going to plug in that cost of goods sold for $500,000. So I know that this side is 100 greater than this side. So if I have 500 over here, the total of these two numbers should be 6. Therefore, my purchase number comes out to 540. So I'm going to take that 540, I'm going to plug it in over here. And I know that these two numbers is 40 greater than the cash paid to suppliers. So I could do the math real quick. I got 540, 593 minus 40, right? So I get 553. Okay? So the cash paid to suppliers is $553,000. So that takes us then to the end. We've gone through these. We have the numbers. And what we want to do is we want to make our statement of cash flows. So if we were in class still, I would have you do this on the test. I'd give you the balance sheet and income statement. And then I'd say, okay, make the operating section on statement of cash flows. And so what you do in order to do the problem, you just look through, and the balance sheet accounts are telling you kind of what you're solving for. So accounts receivable, cash collected from customers. Inventory, cash paid to suppliers. That goes with the payable. We just did that one. Cash paid for rent, cash paid for salaries, cash paid for taxes. So there's my wording. That's how quickly I could come up with it by just looking at those balance sheet items. And then I take all the calculations that I did. And it's funny because there's always like 5 or 6 students on this test. And I said, give me the operating section on statement of cash flows. So they do all this work and they come up with all the numbers, but they don't make the financial statement. It's like, oh my gosh, you forgot to make the financial statement. You got all the numbers right. So when we do that, we have a positive net amount. Net cash flows from operating activities is $107,000. So that's how I went over the first 2 last week. They're the final 4. You have your lines in there to kind of do. Show your calculations, and we're good to go. Okay, so that is the statement of cash flows. And I think when we look at all the financial statements, especially today, we want to make sure that companies remain solvent in the upcoming year. So we look at our liquidity ratios, our quick ratio, and our current ratio. And we went over those in Module 1. We painted the picture on that. And then in Modules 6, we talked about the acquisition of assets, acquisition of long-term assets. Those are investing activities. Module 7, you looked at investing you looked at financing. So we looked at debt and equity financing activities. And then in Module 3 was our accounting cycle, and we looked mostly at the operating part of the business, all the different journal transactions. So you can see how this class is just kind of continuously built upon itself. And here we are at the end. We're using all of our skills, all of our knowledge to kind of create the statement of cash flows. We still are going to cover a multi-step income statement, and we're going to also kind of look at our balance sheet, and then we'll kind of see where we're at. And I might have a couple other tricks up my sleeves to kind of share with you. But for right now, we're going to kind of wrap up today with just the statement of cash flows and kind of going through that. So in your practice packet, you have the next problem to kind of work on. So if you just go to the next problem in your packet. So if I open up the cash flow intro packet one more time, open that doc up. I could go back and kind of look through the notes one more time. They should make more sense now. We're doing the direct method. So there's the problem I just did with you. You filled in all the answers here. So what I want you to do today then is see if you can go through and do the next problem. Okay? So go through, see if you could do this, see if you can answer these. Guys, you're going to be so glad that you're spending the time this week going through this. Because a lot of students get to this point and the white flag comes up and they're done with accounting, and you guys are going to get there and you're going to be awesome at it. So keep it up, guys. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing it. So what I want you to do for this problem, you're just going to put it in your notes, and I'll go through it. We'll do our Google form at the end of the week. All right. I'm pretty tied up the next couple of days. We got our incubator presentations, our academic pitches. So we've been working. I was working on it all day today. Over the weekend, I was answering emails, having Zoom calls with groups and that. So I've been a lot of energy has been going into that. But I'm really impressed with the students and how well they're putting together the presentations and getting through this. And I expect the same out of you guys. So keep it up. Keep at it, guys. I'll talk to you soon.